Out on a lonely western ranch, a woman fights to fix a broken fence alone under the cold moonlight. A mysterious single father appears and says, "Too late for that, ma'am." Danger, tension, and unexpected connection follow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Where are you watching from? Let's get started. The sun hung low over the dusty horizon, burning gold across the plains and turning the sky into molten fire. The wind carried a bitter scent of earth and smoke, whispering through the long grasses, and somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied. A woman worked alone near the edge of the field, her hands raw from labor, sweat and dirt streaking her face. Her name was Clara Malone, and she was determined not to show weakness to anyone, not tonight, not ever. The fence she was repairing groaned with every hammer strike, threatening to collapse under her stubborn persistence. The wind tugged at her hat and coat, whipping strands of hair into her eyes. Every few minutes she wiped her hands on her trousers, glaring at the stubborn post as if sheer will could bend it to her command. She was alone, or at least, she thought she was. A shadow appeared on the far ridge. At first, she ignored it, assuming it was just a trick of the sunset. Then came the sound of hooves striking the dry earth. Slow, deliberate, echoing with a rhythm that made her pulse quicken. Whoever it was, they weren't afraid of the distance or the open land. Clara gritted her teeth. If it's another meddler, they're in for a surprise, she muttered under her breath. The rider approached, tall and confident, the silhouette of a man in a wide-brimmed hat and long coat cutting a sharp line against the fiery sky. The horse was steady, almost proud, its muscles rippling with each step. He stopped a few feet away, boots crunching on the dry dirt, and tipped his hat slightly. "Evening, ma'am," he said, voice low and warm, carrying the kind of calm you only find in people who've faced a storm and walked away. Clara straightened, her jaw tight. "Evening." Her hand rested lightly on the hammer. "And you are?" "The name's Samuel Hayes," he said, swinging down from his horse with ease, boots hitting the ground like a promise. "Thought I'd see who's got the courage to work alone in a field at this hour." Clara shook her head, annoyed and wary. "I don't need help." "Too late for that, ma'am," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, though it was enough to make her pause. "What did you say?" she snapped, gripping the hammer tighter. "Too late for that," he repeated, stepping closer. His hands were steady, calloused, and scarred from years of work and trouble. "I saw the post leaning, the wire snapping. You're not finishing this alone without me getting involved." Her lips pressed into a hard line. "I said I don't need help." Samuel only smiled. That smile, calm and patient, held the weight of someone who had raised a family alone, someone who had learned that some battles weren't worth arguing over. Clara felt an odd sensation ripple through her, a mixture of irritation and fascination. "Don't you dare help me," she said finally, voice sharp. "Too late for that," he replied simply. She groaned, brushing dirt from her trousers and gripping the hammer again. "I said, step back." "I intend to stay," he said, kneeling by the post and examining it. "If you want it fixed tonight, you let me." Clara opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. There was a stubborn strength in him that mirrored her own, and she realized arguing would get her nowhere. Slowly, she handed him the hammer. The first few minutes passed in silence, punctuated only by the sound of nails being driven into wood and the occasional grunt of effort. Clara watched him, his movements. Precise, methodical, almost soothing. He worked fast, but careful, someone who knew the land, the horses, the way tools should bend to human will. "You've got a strong arm," she muttered finally, not looking at him. "And you've got a stubborn streak," he said without glancing up. She frowned. "That's not a compliment." He chuckled softly. "Maybe not. But it suits you." The wind shifted, carrying a faint sound of distant voices. Clara stiffened. "What's that?" "Trouble," Samuel said, eyes narrowing. "And it's heading this way." "Trouble," she repeated, panic creeping into her voice. "They're after the land," he said. "A few men who think a woman alone is easy to intimidate. They don't know the kind of fire you've got in you." Clara's heart pounded. She hadn't realized anyone had been watching, and the thought made her chest tight. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to know it before it hits," he replied. His gaze swept the horizon, sharp and calculating. "And because now, I'm not letting them see you alone." A sudden cry split the air, a bark, or maybe a shout. Clara jumped. Samuel moved swiftly, taking a small rifle from the saddlebag strapped to his horse. Stay low, he instructed. She crouched behind the fence, heart hammering. The voices grew louder, accompanied by the sound of hooves charging across the ground. Clara's mind raced. She had faced storms and droughts, but this felt different. Real danger. Real men who meant harm. 3 riders appeared on the ridge, silhouetted against the last light of day. Samuel's stance was steady, calm, like a man who had been waiting for this moment his whole life. He motioned her behind a fence post, keeping her out of sight. The men shouted, brandishing their weapons. Step aside, girl. This land belongs to us now. Clara bit her lip, gripping the post. She couldn't believe she was hiding. She who had raised her children, maintained the ranch, fought the elements alone. And now she was hiding behind a fence while a stranger kept her alive. Samuel didn't hesitate. He fired a warning shot, the crack echoing across the plain. The nearest man flinched, horse rearing slightly. Another shot went off, this one precise, hitting a post and splintering it. The attackers faltered, confused by his skill and calm. You should have stayed in town, Samuel called. His voice carried authority, the kind that brooked no argument. Clara watched, breath held, as the men exchanged nervous glances. None dared approach further. Within minutes, the riders turned, disappearing into the darkness, their hooves fading into the distance. Samuel lowered the rifle, turning to her. You all right? She nodded, knees weak. I think so. You have a strong heart, he said gently. And a sharp mind. Don't ever doubt that. For the first time, Clara let herself breathe. The tension in her shoulders melted slightly, replaced by a strange relief. She looked at Samuel, realizing she had judged him too quickly, mistaking his quiet strength for arrogance. Why did you stay? She asked quietly. Because I know what it's like to raise a family alone, he replied. To fight the world and expect no one to help you. But sometimes, even the strongest need someone by their side. Clara looked away, emotions swirling. She had fought, struggled, and survived countless hardships alone. But tonight, standing here with a man who didn't flinch, who didn't question her worth, she felt safe. You don't have to be alone, he said softly. Her hands tightened on the fence. I can handle myself. You can, he said with a nod. But you don't have to handle everything alone. The wind shifted again, this time gentle and warm. Horses in the barn whinnied softly. Clara finally let herself relax. She realized that courage wasn't always about facing danger alone, it was about trusting someone to stand with you when the darkness comes. Samuel extended a hand. Let me help with the rest of this fence. We can finish it before sunrise. Clara hesitated, then took it. Together, they worked in silence, the rhythm of hammer and wire echoing across the open land. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the crushing weight of solitude. By dawn, the fence was repaired, strong and steady. The first rays of light painted the valley in gold, casting long shadows across the field. Clara leaned against a post, exhausted but smiling faintly. Samuel stood beside her, horse grazing quietly nearby. See, we make a good team, he said. She laughed softly, brushing dust from her hands. Maybe. For tonight, at least. He smiled, tipping his hat. For more than tonight, if you let me. Her gaze softened, eyes meeting his in the warm morning light. For the first time, she realized that strength didn't always mean being alone. And sometimes, letting someone stand with you wasn't weakness, it was survival. The wind carried a new scent across the valley, freedom, hope, and something unexpected, something like love. And for the first time in a long while, Clara Malone felt that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face the world alone anymore. And Samuel Hayes. He rode beside her now, not just a stranger, not just a helper, but a man who understood the weight of heartache and the strength it took to keep going. Together, they faced the dawn, knowing whatever storms came next, they'd face them side by side. The sun rose fully, spilling light over repaired fences, grazing horses, and 2 people who had discovered that even in the harshest land, the human heart could find companionship, courage, and an unexpected kind of peace.